Congresswoman Andrea Salinas, so nice to be here with you. Thank you for taking some time with us today. I know it's kind of early in the term, but you've had a few months there. Maybe started off a little bit later than anticipated because of, as we all know, some things. But now that you've had some time in Washington, what's it been like?
I tell people, it's actually fun. It's more fun than I think sometimes it appears to the public. It has been like drinking from a fire hose. I will not lie about that. Being a freshman member, there's a lot to do. And I've said this in the past. We're still, in fact, I think we're hiring our last person out here in the district office, and we just brought on 2 new legislative assistants in our DC office. So it's a lot to set up a new office as a freshman member and a new district. But it's very exciting. I was really just pleased that I'm serving on the Agriculture Committee as well as Science, Space, and Technology. So I have my committee assignments. I think, we're already reaching out across the aisle, making sure that we work in a bipartisan way and listening to the community needs across my district. And so it's been fun just to learn about kind of all the pent-up need that is there.
Yeah, you really touched on a lot of things right there. Going back to talking about the Farm Bill, I know that was a really big initiative for you, that you want to get that renewed. Can you talk a little bit about that and just maybe explain it to anybody who doesn't quite understand what all is entailed with that?
Yeah, so every 5 years, Congress addresses what they call Farm Bill reauthorization. And the last time it was reauthorized was 2018, so it expires at the end of 2023. And it was just about under $1 trillion. I think it was close to $900 billion in different kinds of authorizations for agriculture, growers, and nutrition. So it covers a lot of different areas. It provides some supports for our growers, and whether that's supports for adaptation and mitigation around climate practices and conservation, or whether that's disaster assistance and maybe crop insurance, especially as we have seen all these different, weather events, ice storms, not in our area, but hurricanes elsewhere, obviously heat domes here and things of that nature, to make sure that our growers are still able to continue their businesses. So it is a lot of that, but it's also nutrition programs, making sure that people have the food that they need to eat and to survive as a family. So it covers a wide range of issues. It covers a wide range of help. It covers some workforce issues around worker housing as well. So it is a very big bill. It's probably going to be one of the few bills that actually passes Congress over the next couple of years. And so I'm excited to be working on it because I know how critical it is to my district in the Willamette Valley.
Well, and talking about your district, in particular, you mentioned that it's a new district, brand new district, everything kind of starting there. What are some of the things that you've seen so far? I guess maybe some needs that you weren't aware of before that need to be addressed, or how has it been, progressing?
Yeah, so what I would say is I think our voice has been underrepresented in a lot of the more rural parts of my district. And I've been talking to everybody, so I'm not ignoring, Washington County or Clackamas County, but they have had bigger voices, I think, at the federal level than maybe some of my Yamhill, Polk, and Marion County folks, and even Marion County, I think, has a larger voice. But what we're finding is that a lot of my small towns, because I have been visiting with a lot of mayors and county commissioners, they don't have the resources to actually go out and seek funding from the federal government, maybe the way that some of these other larger, better resourced jurisdictions have. And so having a partner like their federal representative and my staff who is really trying to help us connect those dots for them. And so, because again, they don't really have an additional, lawyer or an additional researcher to go out and find those grants that maybe will help and they may be eligible for, but can't access those federal funds. So it's things of that nature that I was really surprised about. And so, yeah, so really leaning into making sure that the help that I give is equitable across the board.
Well, talking about some of your initiatives, we mentioned the Farm Bill, but I know mental health awareness, mental health treatment, every aspect of that is something that's very important to you. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there are going to be kind of 2 pieces to it. And the first is what I'm calling my Mental Health Monday. And really, and the impetus for this is that Oregon places really high in incidents of mental health, behavioral health, and substance use. Yet we're towards the bottom, and I'm talking nationwide amongst other states, but we're towards the bottom in terms of treatment and access to that health care. And I think it goes into so many different areas of our culture and our communities and our families, and people are asking for help, and we're seeing a lot of trauma right now. So Mental Health Monday is really to raise awareness and to reduce stigma and to let people know that there are actually resources out there right now. It's not enough. and then we need to build on that. So I really, because I do think that the first step is to reducing that stigma so people will know, hey, it's okay for me to seek that help. Then the second piece of kind of, and this will be longer term, is putting the policy pieces in place to make sure that we have enough providers, and especially for our kids, to access treatment, recovery. We need more secure residential facilities. There's a lot within the entire system. So I think what I'm hearing from different providers and people within the healthcare community and behavioral health and substance use communities as well, is we really need more providers. And so I think that is probably where my policy pieces will start to go. But in between those mental health Mondays, my staff and I will be working on what does that look like, and again, getting feedback from our communities on how we should start to develop that policy.
I like that concept of mental health Monday. You mentioned the stigma and maybe lack of education for a lot of purposes, that people just don't understand. So talking about providing that education to people, how is it that you're reaching out to them? What are the ways that you're engaging?
So we're trying to reach out to the communities that are actually working on it or seeing it. We went to a nursery relief center where we know that families come and have trauma, and they're seeking help in a variety of ways, and a lot of it is food assistance, but really trying to figure out how we can provide the supports for a better family life. That was out in Yamhill County, but also making sure that we're getting word out to populations that may have an interest. But first off, I'm doing when I'm back in DC, trying to do a speech on the floor. We try to do social media around it to start to provide some of those resources too. So if people can have access to the internet, and I know not everybody does, or broadband, but so my Twitter page, my Facebook page, every week I'm trying to just highlight something new.
Great. You also mentioned, going back to talking about working, actually in Congress, working with across the aisle, perhaps, working with that diverse group of people. As we all know, there's been a lot of division there, even from across the aisle, within the aisle, all over the place. So for you, kind of being a freshman, how are you trying to kind of maybe mitigate some of that or work across and find some compromise?
Well, my first, as you mentioned, the first few days that we were on the floor trying to get sworn in, we had a lot of time on the floor. So I actually had a great opportunity to start going around and introducing myself to different people. And how I knew who to introduce myself to was I'd ask kind of some of the veteran Democrats, who have you worked with on the other side of the aisle? And got some great, advice, but obviously starting with my own delegation, I reached out to Congresswoman Chavez-DeRemer. She and I have very similar districts, and we are expecting actually to do some listening sessions. We both serve on ag. So where is that common ground, and how can we deliver for Oregon? I've met with Congressman Bentz as well. He's on natural resources. I'm the ranking on the forestry subcommittee. I think there'll be some synergies there. And if nothing else, I need to learn what he also wants and what his constituents need, because I also live in the state of Oregon, right? And we want to be able to work together to figure out where that common ground is and what's best for the entire state too. And then from there, actually members of Congress, who are in the building that I work in the Cannon building, have introduced themselves. I'm starting to develop relationships on my agriculture committee with other Republicans who I think may again have some common interests. And so I think there's going to be a movie showing later, I think out in Washington D.C. that I'm hoping to ask the chair of my forestry subcommittee, if he wants to help me sponsor it. It'll be highlighting some of the wildfires down in Paradise, California. Those types of things where, again, I think we're all trying to aim for the same thing, and sometimes the devil in the details gets us bogged down. But let's not get out of the gate bogged down. Let's try to have those conversations.
Talking about conversations, you're back here in Oregon now. Taking some time to visit, everybody in your constituency. What are some of the things that you've heard? What's the feedback you're getting? What are people most interested in right now that you're doing?
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of so let me back up a little bit. We have appropriations kind of funding requests that are due here pretty soon, and so our communities can make requests for different funding measures. And they've been going on for a long time. They used to be called earmarks. They're now called community project funding. And so going around and again listening to my local communities, city councilors, commissioners, that sort of thing, there seems to be pent-up deferred maintenance and need around infrastructure. And whether that's highway infrastructure, and a lot of times it's the state highways that need help, or water infrastructure, so whether it's their sewage treatments or their drinking water treatments, and and infrastructure, or like rural broadband, and economic development. So that is a lot of what I'm hearing about. And so we are expecting to get a number of different requests for some of those small projects, and whether it's the studies, the environmental impact statements that need to be done, some of the engineering preliminary studies that need to be done. A lot of these towns need help, and we've been neglecting it, and the federal government has been disinvesting for a number of years, since the 80s, honestly, and our locals can't do it themselves, and ratepayers can't afford it. We can't push it out on ratepayers all the time, because our communities will collapse. And I think that families and working families are having a hard enough time already trying to make ends meet.
You mentioned, a lot of people may feel neglected, or they have been neglected by the federal government. For those I know, in particular, broadband, infrastructure, rural broadband is definitely behind. So for people out there, though, who may not have been used to having anybody to contact, or just feel like there is no way to get help, what is the best way for them to reach out to you? I mean, obviously you can't be at every house every day. That's right. You've got a lot going on. So how can they reach out, maybe communities that may not even understand that there is possible help out there?
Oh yeah, and they absolutely should. I mean, I know people who have problems with Social Security or Medicare, and they need help with the agency, or maybe trying to get a visa or a passport even. If you want to go on vacation, I know that seems like a smaller problem, but sometimes things get delayed. Absolutely, like people in my district should reach out. They can go onto my website at salinas.house.gov. There's a contact page. There's also our phone numbers to our DC office, as well as our district office here in Salem. We have one district office. We'll be setting up another probably in Washington County. But yeah, and people can call up and make an appointment, and there's a way for us to help them directly. So yeah, and if they have ideas about what they're seeing on the ground in terms of policies not working, that is what I'm here for. I'm happy to hear that, because that's my job, is to help our communities problem solve to a better place.
That's great for them to know that there's some place to go to reach out. Final thing, just for this, I know you've only been in there for a couple of months, and this is a lot that's happening, but what if you could accomplish one specific thing here over this next year? What would be the biggest thing you want to accomplish?
I would love to start to, increase reimbursement rates for Medicare, because I think this is going to be a sticky subject, and I know it's going to be hard, because I think Republicans are trying to figure out big ways, and did I say Medicare? I meant Medicaid, but Medicare and Medicaid. But Medicaid is a big one, because this directly impacts some of our more lower income Oregonians who, again, need to access mental and behavioral health care. So that's the first step. And then my second step is to increase that workforce around mental behavioral health care. And then to make sure we get a farm bill that passes that actually includes the needs of my growers, which are those specialty crops, that the nutrition programs, I know this is more than one, that the nutrition programs also are fully funded, and that our workers have benefits out of this farm bill as well.
So some ambitious initiatives right
now
that you want to get accomplished.
That's right.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for sitting down with us and talking to us about this, and best of luck on the rest of the term.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.